A few reminders. Just a few reminders, this meeting is being recorded. Please identify yourself when talking so we can capture accurate minutes. The chat function is disabled and closed captions available. You can turn it on if you wish. And you can also lock participants in your view of WebEx, so feel free to do so. And next slide, please. All right, Abby, do you want to go through the attendance, please? Roll call.
Yes, happy to.
Thank you.
All right, so we do have one new member, so I guess I'll just have her do a brief introduction, but I'll start just going down my list. Is Diana Perez here?
I am here.
Thanks, Diana. Sandra Zavala Ortega.
I'm here.
Great. Rob Perkins. I am not seeing Rob. Ernie Suggs. Katie Favela.
I'm here.
Great. Rondalyn Clark. I don't see Rondalyn. Emily Wilson, could you give a brief introduction as our newest member?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Emily Wilson. My preferred pronouns are she, her, and I am here as the newest member. And I work for United Way of the Columbia Willamette as well as United Ways of the Pacific Northwest, doing community outreach and marketing work.
Thanks, Emily. We're so excited to have you on the board.
Thank you.
Is Clover Spears here? I see Clover online. Clover, can you hear us okay?
What?
Markers here. It looks like Rob just joined in the room. Megan Wilsoff, are you here?
Yes, I am here.
Great. Faye Solomon.
Here.
Wonderful. Amy Rourke. Lee Padinelli.
I'm here.
Great. Nakia Hunter.
Here.
Wonderful. Melanie Green.
Here.
And Brittany Saint.
Here.
Great. Looks like we have a quorum and board chair Rob Perkins is now here, so I'll pass it back to him for approval of minutes.
Thank you for getting us started, Abby. Sorry to be late. There was no parking here. Okay, the next item on our agenda is the approval of the March and April 2025 minutes, which should be on your screen. No, that's the agenda, which should be in your packet. Action will require a motion to approve the minutes.
I approve the minutes, Amy.
Work has moved to approve the minutes. Is there a second?
This is Megan, I second.
Megan, a second. So there's a motion and a second to approve March and April 2025 minutes. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll take a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
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 And are there any opposed? Carries. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the CAAB and HCRS RFA funding recommendations. This will require some action, but I'm going to turn it over to Abby and Kayla to talk about it.
Thank you, Rob. All right, so first of all, I just want to say thank you so much to all of our applicants for taking time to submit applications for this RFA. We know it's been a really long and complex process. And also thank you so much to all of our board members for the time spent reviewing and scoring applications in such a thoughtful and diligent manner. We couldn't do this work without all of your volunteer time, so really, really appreciate it. And I'm gonna get us started just by going over the scores for the community action, RFA, and then I'll pass it to Gayla for the homeless crisis response system. So for the community action program, RFA, as you all know, we have 3 funding categories. These were physical health, income and asset building, and transportation. These categories were determined based on the priority needs identified in the 2024 Clark County Community Needs Assessment, and funding was awarded based on the amount of, or the percent of respondents who identified these areas as a priority need. So starting off with the physical health category, we had $113,500 available in this category. The top scoring applicant was Fair's Meal and Nutrition Program. They requested the full amount at $113,500. And so at this time, they will receive the full award. Unfortunately, we don't have additional funding left to support these other application requests that are also in this physical health category. So that is where the allocation stands for this category. Under income and asset building, there were $99,500 available. There was only 1 applicant in this category, and the CAAB determined to award them their full requested amount based on the scores. And then under the transportation category, there was $71,000 available. Again, there was 1 applicant under this category, New Life Recovery Services for a support assistance transportation program. You can see their score here. They also requested the full amount, and so at this point would receive the full award. Is there any discussion among the CAAB about the way that this funding is falling at this time, or the scores before we confirm these funding awards?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Please give your name.
Brittany. The question that I have is in regards to the income and asset building, Safe First Financial. I'm curious, like the score appears to be pretty low, and are there concerns around some of the answers that they provided? Like just when you look at, for example, like physical health and the scores and how they kind of landed out, since there's only 1 application, I understand that they're kind of automatically getting it. And has there ever been discussion in the past of when a score is lower, are there concerns about awarding the applicant even if they're the only applicant?
That's a really
And full transparency, I was not in this group. I have not read the application. I don't know if there's concerns, but to see that that the score is 70, I'm wondering like where it was docked considerably.
Yeah, that's a really good question, Brittany. So if the CAAB members who did score in this category do have significant concerns about the application in terms of if it meets program requirements or what was solicited in the RFA, the CAAB can determine to not award this application at all, and those funds could be moved to the physical health category if that is something that the CAAB elects to do. So if the members who did score this application do have those concerns and want to raise them now, you can do so.
How many total were there again? Or there? Altogether, how many was there?
How many
People
applications?
application there.
This is all the applications that we received under the Community Action Program, RFA. So,
Oh, okay, there's gonna be more expected, right?
yeah, for the homeless crisis response system RFA, there were a lot more applications, and we'll talk about those in a minute, but the Community Action Program and homeless crisis response system are 2 separate RFAs. So is there any discussion among the CAB about the Safe First Financial Program or any of the other programs that came in for award? Or do we want to take a motion to approve the funding allocations as they stand on this slide?
This is Diana. I'm looking at the group that reviewed this particular one, and I believe it was group one. So Faye, myself, Amy, Clover. And I agree. I'm a little bit concerned about that final score compared to these scores up above in physical health. And would like to propose the movement of those funds to the physical health area. And I don't know if there is a threshold where it's warranted a discussion. And I do agree that a 70 compared to the scores up above where it's almost 90, we should be able to have a discussion.
I have a question about that. Is there latitude to do that kind of thing? Or is the income and asset building category categorized? Is that funding categorized for income and asset building?
So there is flexibility to do that if the CAB determines that this application doesn't, meet the requirements for the funding. So if the CAB determines that, this application isn't meeting the need that was requested in the RFA to alleviate the causes and conditions of poverty as identified by priority needs in the community needs assessment, then you can determine to award that application as a 0 total score, and then we can move the funding to the other category. Yes.
We would have to change the score.
So you would just have to determine that application was not going to receive funding this round. And you would have to justify why. Yeah, we would change the score.
So the only ones that would vote on it are the ones that actually read the applications, right?
Yeah, I mean, if other CAB members have not reviewed this application, then they probably don't have the information needed to make that decision.
Get the ball player linked up for that. So we have time to,
We want to pull it up.
Yeah.
let's pull it up.
So you can pull up the application.
And we have time in the agenda to dig into that.
We do. Yeah, I can pull up the Excel questionnaire, and then separately I can also pull up the scores that see specific categories. All right, so this is the application that was received for the Safe First Financial Wellness Program. Yeah.
Donald, it might be easier to look at the submission questionnaire.
On bonfire, yeah, okay. If you have it up, Kayla, and want to share your screen.
And there's just Safe First Financial, right?
It's a good show.
Sorry, everyone, we're just pulling up the application real quick.
Those files are accessible to folks who are in that reading group.
They probably, yeah.
So I don't see them in the list here.
I know.
And so it might just be easier. Yeah, so I'm gonna share it on the screen too.
And those focus ones will be your first question. Are you reading that aloud? And then your second question too. Yeah, that's pretty exciting.
All right, so we're just gonna look at the first couple questions so you all can get a good sense of the application. So for the first question, it was described the proposed program in detail. And I can read this aloud to you all. It said, our mission at Save First Financial Wellness is to empower individuals to achieve financial stability and secure their basic needs through guidance and support for navigating financial challenges and building a brighter future. For over 15 years, we have transformed lives by providing financial wellness services such as educational resources, one-on-one financial coaching, emergency assistance, depending on funding availability, resource navigation, and access to asset building strategies and products. We utilize a low barrier intake process, allowing clients to present their additional needs while we take the time to understand their situations and provide the necessary resources. Our educational offerings include workshops, one-on-one coaching, and strategies focused on debt reduction, credit improvement, budgeting, saving, and asset creation. Since 2020, we have served the Southwest Washington community in partnership with Lighthouse Financial Foundation. At the Bridgeview Resource Center, we introduced emergency assistance funded by Community Foundation for Southwest Washington, resource navigation and referrals, classes, individual coaching sessions, collaborating with Evergreen School District, Habitat, and other local service providers. We have impacted over 1,700 clients each year. Our Financial Wellness Basics class is a self-paced online course available in English, Spanish, and Russian, along with additional courses like Your Path to Homeownership and Understanding Credit. In partnership with PIC, we have educated over 500 Ukrainian refugees through a series of classes focused on personal finance basics and overcoming barriers to financial success in the U.S. We also offer individual coaching for clients. Together with YWCA, we have provided financial wellness classes and one-on-one coaching for survivors of domestic violence. Currently, we are working with the Vancouver Housing Authority to deliver financial coaching for clients enrolled in the Family Self-Sufficiency and Voucher programs. These clients who receive vouchers or subsidized housing through VHA are guided on personalized paths to employment and self-sufficiency. With our support, they have managed to overcome barriers like low or no credit, establish goals based on a self-defined roadmap, and connected with essential services and support. In collaboration with VHA, we serve clients interested in the Clark County Affordable Homeownership Program, guiding them through the complex application process and helping them prepare for lender approval. SafeFirst provides services aimed at fostering home ownership and equity building. As our program continues to grow, we're seeing an increasing number of clients seek counseling and support. So that is their overall program proposal. There were obviously a lot of other questions on the application. And we probably don't have time to review every single question as an entire group, but would love to hear your thoughts, especially those who reviewed the entire application, about maybe why this one was scored lower and if you think it serves the needs identified in the community needs assessment.
Is low here, pretty high.
I mean, what was, this is Diana, what was the number of folks that were going to benefit from this I'm trying to remember if they had identified the number of people that would be
Such a
tied to this, right? Just compared to the funding request.
Yeah.
Probably under outcome.
Just like that. Yeah, right there.
Outputs and outputs. All right, so these are the proposed outputs. It looks like the annual goal for clients is 150 to 200 individuals and or families, which was determined based on the last 15 years of service within the community.
Is this an existing program?
It is not a current program that we fund, but it sounds like it is a program that has been operational in the community.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't part of the scoring, sorry, this is Clover, wasn't part of the scoring if they weren't a currently funded program, they got like a 0 or something like that? If I remember correctly.
That's for the homeless crisis response
Oh,
system. And that
sorry, I'm
was
confusing.
because of priorities identified by the county and the state to maintain existing services. But that wasn't something that we awarded funds for a community action
Oh.
program.
I was confused. There's so many of them I scored.
Yeah. And just looking at the specific scoring, I mean, it seems like different scores had, you know, different opinions, but it seems like there were some reduced points in the equity section by a couple of scores, but also some gave them full points. Maybe if we look at specific questions.
I mean, you have, Abby, this is Diana, you have the compilation of the scores, so
Yeah, I
can
can
you
pull that
go
up.
to where it just so we could see where they were scoring low.
Yeah. Yeah, all right, so Save First Financial. They received 49 out of 60 points under program design, 17 out of 20 under equity, and 4.67 out of 15 under management
Okay.
plan.
So that's where they scored low in their management plan.
Their management plan, yeah.
Okay.
6, 7.
And that's just an average.
Right now, let's look at those questions in management plan.
Yeah.
Okay, that helps.
I think there was only, let's see,
And I will say too that everyone who applied did pass a pre-application administrative review with our staff and financial staff confirming our confidence in their program capacity to operate. So if they do need additional technical assistance on the management side of things, that's where the program coordinators come in to give that training and support.
yes, and under management plan, they, let's see. Oh, this was actually budget.
Just go ahead, Steve, 301.
Yeah. So this question was about, describe your management plan for the program. They said this financial coaching coordinator will be part of a larger team and report directly to the program director, who reports to the executive director. During the onboard stage, 30, 60, 90-day goals will be set. The anticipated 150 to 200 clients served will be over the year. Experience has shown us that bi-monthly volunteer training opportunities and onboarding volunteers in cohorts of 10 are manageable caseloads and growth. So
Okay.
maybe they received reduced points just for, you know, not including a ton of detail. But again, Clark County will work with programs, especially new programs, to work on their management plan and make sure that it meets our requirements. They also might have received reduced points under HMIS because they haven't worked within the HMIS system yet and will need to be trained. This one is about program guidelines and monitoring requirements. Again, maybe because they haven't worked with Clark County Community Services yet, they received fewer points. Any other questions or anything else you all want me to pull up on this application?
So, I'd still like to propose moving the funding, to the physical health. I think there are some valid concerns with not having a good management plan with enough details, or I don't know, I'm just concerned about the ability to move forward with this one to really meet the intent compared to the higher need in the other categories, in the physical health. I mean, just that amount of 99,500 can help,
And I think
help
just
the other
one,
two. Yeah, and then here's another question. I know that for physical health, it was a request for the full 113. Is there ability to do, to give 100,000 and move that 13,000 to the next one to be able to complete some funds, or
That's what I was thinking.
award a little bit less than what is being asked?
so if we wanted to set limits on the amount of funding that each agency could come in for, that's something that has to be determined at the start of the RFA process. We can't partially award if an agency did come in to request that full amount and was awarded based on their score. We can't change that after the RFA.
Gotcha. Okay.
Do they get what they asked for if they get it?
If they get the points, yes, and they're first in line. That is something we can build into future RFAs if that's something that would like to consider. Yeah.
Okay. So just to review, process for moving that money to another category would be to change the score for, say, First Financial.
So I think the only way that we could move those funds is if you all determine that this application does not meet what we requested in the RFA. So if it doesn't meet the need for income and asset building as was requested in the RFA, or if there are significant concerns with the program design. But we did allocate funding to this category. They are coming in for an income and asset building program. It passed review, and all the scores did score it without indicating significant concerns. So I think unless there are glaring red flags about this program not meeting the requirements, then we can't just zero out their scores and move the funding. It would be like if they came in for just a completely different program that wasn't really an income and asset building program, or if they, weren't serving participants in Clark County, or something that really didn't meet the program requirements.
Abby, this is Lily, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead, Lily.
Thank you. I hear the concerns, and I think if the option was to maybe allocate not 99,500 for this applicant, if there was a way to maybe offer less, but I do see the value they bring. I've worked with new arrivals in Clark County for the past 3 years, and folks arriving here to US from other countries, unfortunately, they do not understand how to plan and budget and financials work, especially credit cards. I'll speak on on the community of Ukrainians. Most of them in Ukraine do not rely and use credit cards. So this was huge news to them here, that everything here is tied to a credit score, and they have to open up cards and use, and how to effectively, use the credit cards and things like that. So we ran into a huge issue with just Ukrainian community, just really not knowing how to do it, and especially like bank accounts. Most of them do cash in Ukraine. That's just the currency. The popularity of bank accounts, checking, savings is just not as common in Ukraine. So for them here, the same thing was like, they just had cash and they didn't have any. So when it came to getting an apartment or something, they had no wire transactions, which was really difficult. Then came for housing and other things. So I do see value in having folks kind of do some kind of asset building understanding. So I would just support in that sense. If the option was to allocate less, just to kind of, since it's a first time applicant, would have been ideal, but it sounds like that might not be possible. But I do think the value of having someone in the community do that kind of work is pretty important.
Lily, I'd like to add a comment to that as well as with our advisory board members. When we are asking you guys to assess the impact, we're also making sure you guys are looking at a really zoomed out view of the system. And so income and asset building was an area that was identified through our community needs assessment as an area that the community says they need support in. And so by removing that area completely and increasing physical health, you would be removing an identified community. So just something to be aware of.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing your thoughts, Lily. Like Kayla said, we can't reduce the available funding in specific categories at this time unless the application, you know, like I said, didn't meet the funding requirements. Go ahead, Brittany.
The question that I had was, specifically, I know that you looked at a couple areas in the application around, and you dove in a little bit into the management, but I noticed that they scored lower on program design, and so I'm curious of if you can say like what it is that scored them lower on program design. I think it's great that the county can provide support around the management and implementation piece, but if there were significant concerns in the program design piece, I think it would be helpful to know that.
For sure. Can any of the folks who scored the application maybe speak to why they scored program design lower?
Why don't we can share, these ones are the program design points. So, looks like Clover scored that area 41, Diana scored that area 34, and Faye scored that area 42.
And it was out of 60 points possible, is that correct?
45 for program design. So it looks like Clover and Faye scored that area relatively high, and Diana scored them lower comparatively. So here, let me read you guys too. For program design, their average score was 39 out of 45 points. For equity, their average score was 17 out of 20 points. And really the biggest loss or difference for them is within their management plan scoring, which their average was 4.67 out of 13 points.
This is Faye, Abby. If you could put that question on the screen so we could look at it. I don't remember exactly why I scored it that way, but if I could see what it is, I can tell you.
Well,
We just read through the main question under program design. At this point, scores have been entered, so, you know, we can't change how people enter their scores at this time. I think if those who scored have some serious concerns about the application that they want to raise at this time, you can feel free to do so, but I'm not hearing anything about issues with this program meeting the RFA requirements. We've read through their overall proposal. So I do think we do need to move forward to the homeless crisis response.
Well, this is Diana. I mean, all of these applications meet the RFA requirements. Otherwise, we wouldn't have looked at them. So where we scored them was what was written and provided to us. And based on what was written and provided, that's how they were scored based on our own assessment, individual assessment. So just based on what was provided, there is no clear management plan, not enough information. Given that the work has already taken place and they're already doing that, I was just didn't feel like there was enough information provided in there in the application. So, but if, you know, it's a group, I don't know what the decision-making process is here, if it's a group decision that we vote or.
Maybe I can
Yeah.
get into that.
I don't know how you want to move
We have
forward.
5 minutes left for approving these.
And we can skip the reflection if we have to do that different time.
Have to. All right, but the applicant, Say First Financial, went through a pre-application review. And in that pre-application review, it was determined that they could meet this need, which was identified by the county as something. Okay. We don't have a lot of institutional history about the last cycle or the cycle previous, but scores of 70. Combined with that review, do they generally constitute passage and approval for funding? Or is this more of a one applicant, one award kind of thing?
You will see applicants in their 70s range receive funding, yes.
Yeah, and you, previously, the only reason that we have, you know, completely moved funding out of a category is if, one, no one applied,
Mhm.
or two, like I said, the application received did not meet
Mhm.
the requirements that were solicited.
Yeah, and I will say, when that happens, it's because BCS will review their pre-application, and we might determine that their agency is a viable agency to be able to handle funding. However, in their actual program design component, it might shine through that they're applying for something that's not relevant at all to the funding bucket. So they could still get through to you guys for scoring, but we have had agencies come in that don't meet the program design that would not get passed or awarded at that point.
Yeah, or if the CAAB had determined to score this application at a 0, then that funding could be moved, but they received 70 points. So I don't think that is justified to reject their funding request when they receive the top score in the category.
Amy, this is
Hi,
Faye.
this is Megan. I've had my hand up raised for a little bit, so I'm hoping I can jump in here.
Okay.
I just want to say that I feel like we have to trust in the process of our review and the individuals who were appointed to this board to make those reviews. And that what feels like this discussion is turning into changing the rules at the end of the race could hinder our ability to be a good representative for the community members who are trying something new or trying something different and trying to break through and get funding. I understand the concerns for a lower score, but as was voiced by other members, like they met the criteria to have the application submitted. And in that, we as individuals with our experience were able to review those. And this was the score that was appointed. And if they've met that criteria, I think we need to really focus on honoring it at this point, and then working with them as their allies with that funding to do the proper thing with it and give them the guidance that they need.
And that's built into the county's onboarding process.
Agree.
It is.
I
That's
agree.
correct.
I have a question. Is there a threshold?
Well, Faye, we're
Yes.
really are running out of time for this particular.
Okay.
item. And I think what do you need a separate motion for each of the categories?
I think we can vote to batch approve the CAAB funding recommendations.
So what I'd be looking for is a motion to approve the CAP funding recommendations as presented. And also, you want to make sure to write down that our concerns about the process and its outcome this time so that we can design a better one next time. Diana, does that sound like it approaches something that you'd be comfortable with?
I mean, yeah, so we're voting, basically.
Well, if someone brings a motion, yes.
Yes.
So is there a motion?
I move to approve the distribution as noted.
Motion by Faye Solomon to approve the CAP funding recommendations as presented. Is there a
This is
second?
Melanie. I second.
Motion and second. Is there any, well, we've already had the discussion, so with your permission, we'll go straight to the vote. All those that are in favor of this motion, please say aye.
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 And any opposed?
Nay, this is Diana.
Okay. So we have one opposed and we'll do a show of hands.
I would like to abstain.
Okay, here online and voting, could you raise your hand for yes? We'll get a count there. And in the room, all those in favor, would you raise your hand as well? Yeah, I just need to get like a count. Okay, 2, 3,
So 8, that's majority.
okay, 8, and 1 abstention, which, yeah. And Diana's no vote is an 8-1 result, right?
I see some folks who didn't raise their hands at all. So,
I would like to also abstain.
okay, Brittany's also abstaining.
Okay,
Sorry, my mute button was stuck. This is Nakia. I would also like to abstain.
okay. That's still, that'd be 2-1.
Yeah, I mean, 8 is majority on the CAAB. We have 15 members.
Let's record an 8-1 vote, and the motion carries. This will let us move on to the next, to the HMIS.
All right.
And we want to make sure to gather opinions and things and really have a discussion about the process.
Sorry, I want to check. What was the final count and has the count been recorded?
8 in favor, 1 opposed.
That doesn't add 15.
And I heard 3 abstentions. Are you voting? Okay.
There.
I think there's a couple.
Yeah, there's a couple of blocks set too.
Yeah, okay. So the motion will carry with, yeah, 8-1, 3 abstentions.
Mhm.
Okay, then let's move on to the next category.
All righty, Kayla Williams, and I do want to let everyone know that Commerce had office hours late yesterday afternoon. Up to this point, they have been communicating with counties across the state that we need to prepare for a 20% reduction in funds across the entire system. At office hours, it was verbally shared that they are no longer preparing for those cuts. So I was able to get contact with some of Commerce leadership to confirm a rough estimated budget. We will get an official budget to us by next week for estimates available. So as of this morning, 8 a.m., these are additions that were able to be allocated to our system for our homeless response. So that's why you will see some of the funding available is larger than what was first identified in the RFA that was edited in January to prepare for those 20% reductions. So those funds have been allocated out proportionally to the same percentage that they were originally allocated out. And you will see some adjustments to how many contracts we're able to award. So go ahead, Abby. All right, so we have 2 agencies that are being proposed for award for rapid rehousing. That's Impact Northwest and Janus Youth Programs. Impact Northwest is being awarded their full requested amount. They scored 93.75. And Janus Youth Programs is being offered a partial amount. And this is just due to the remaining funds that are available for that category. So if Janus Youth does accept, we will be able to contract them that 100,000 remaining. Permanent supportive housing, all of the applicants are able to get an award. So for SHARE, they're the only applicant that would be awarded a partial award for their county PSH program. And that again is just due to the amount of funding available in the category. And then CMAR, CSNW was awarded their full available funds for SOAR in their application. With that being said, we also have, just so agencies are aware, just so the CAAB is aware, it's possible that those that are offered a partial award are going to be able to be made whole. We expect some local dollar carryover from unspent funds. The only thing is that we don't get to finalize that budget for sure until early to mid-July. So come early to mid-July, we plan to be working with those programs that are partially funded to see if we can get them to the full capacity of their ask as much as possible. We just can't guarantee that we can do that until July. Any questions about these 3 programs?
Is that related to this, the state budget?
These ones?
The delay or the 20% reduction that you're?
So the state budget won't come to us. We don't consider that we've received the state budget until we have a signed grant. So the state will be sending their part 2 of their grant application to counties next week. That was what was shared at office hours. I was able to reach out to the Director of Commerce last night and ask her for an unofficial approximation for each category in Clark County. That way we can better plan to award as many contractors as possible, and not have to scale back any programs unnecessarily if we don't have to plan for a 20% reduction. The director was willing to give me the unofficial amounts, which are substantially more, specifically for EPRAP, than what we had considered when building the RFA. So yes, we won't get the state budget until late June officially, but we do have their approximations now.
Is that typical in a low session year?
That's typical of every new grant period. So
3 years.
yeah, and it does kind of contrast with the way we have our RFAs set up sometimes, because it's a 2-year contract that we get from the state, and we do an RFA process every 3 years.
Okay. Ready for questions?
Yeah, right.
Let's open a discussion about the HCR
There's a
recommendations.
couple more slides too.
Oh, there.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's store programs. That's
not open a discussion. All right, keep going.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, next we have our temporary housing supports. So we have YWCA being awarded their full requested amounts. This is for their transitional housing program and for their enhancement to maintain existing shelter capacity of domestic violence beds that have been added within the last couple of years. And then Outsiders In is going to be awarded a partial award of $250,000 should they choose to accept the partial award. Again, the number one priority in our system and coming from the state is to maintain the level of shelter beds. So should we get any additional funds come July, Outsiders In would be the number one priority to make full with additional funding to maintain beds. And then for outreach, we have Cher and Janice both being awarded. Janice would be offered a partial award for outreach at $50,000, so about a third of their ask. And if they accept it, we will build it in again with the possibility to get them to their full point in July once we reassess funding.
Yeah, this is a big shortfall.
The ones that don't have, the 3 and 5 that don't have the word amount right there, they didn't get, are they?
Correct, yeah, they did. If we have a substantial amount of funding, and we're able to get confirmation of that substantial amount prior to contracts going live in July, we would be able to go down the RFA list. But once contracts are live and the RFA is officially closed out, we won't be able to award additional agencies that are identified here.
It looks like Brittany's hand is up.
I'm trying to think of the best way to word or ask this, so bear with me as I navigate the question. So what I'm understanding is that the funding was decreased by 20% because of the budget situation, and then it was communicated to the partners and nonprofits that the funding would be decreased. They needed to ask for lower amounts because there's 20% less funding available, but now there's additional funding available. And I guess where the concern comes in is that everybody that submitted an application asked for lower amounts based on that 20% was available. And then we're increasing the amount, which is great, and is still putting the partners at a deficit because they based everything off of the communications that there were lower amounts.
Correct. And there
So,
is still, Brittany, there is still not enough funds to meet the identified need. So some of these programs, even with the additional funds, are not able to get their full ask built in because there are still local deficits. We use local dollars to fill in some of the identified need here too. So when that happens, what will happen is if we do get excess dollars, the contractors that we are working with right now, or that will be awarded, will have the opportunity to scale up their programs. So should we get a bulk of funding with the contractors that we confirm and identify today, we will be able to pretty much offer out those funds to increase program capacity or levels of support within them. So they could, if we get the funding, be able to increase, but again, we can't confirm that until we have a finalized.
And Michael also has his hand raised.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I don't, Michael, do you want to go? I do have a follow-up.
Yes, well, and I'm partly I'm going to be answering part of your question is the providers were not asked to reduce their proposals by 20%. What went out to the community and formally in the RFA solicitation was that the funding available in each category was being reduced by 20%. So, the providers could, submit a proposal for the amount they need for their program. The amount of funds available, let's say, to support rapid rehousing or to support shelter or to support outreach, the total amount of funds available is less. So that's the change. So that is a nuance, but we did not go out to providers and say, hey, share, please reduce your outreach proposal by 20%. That's it's by category. The guidance for the proposals was not changed.
I guess it is a nuance, but like if you share, for example, in that they in some categories ask for the full amount, then yes, they are having to reduce it because the full amount is like what they actually need is not available. I guess the other comment that I have, because it's not really a question, but in follow up to kind of the timing and everything, I know that organizations are actively planning like layoff plans because of funding decreases. So just expressing the timeliness and communication of that there may be funds available, what that could possibly look like as organizations are actively planning for layoffs. And having that information could be key to some of the decision making that they're having to approach.
And I do want to touch on that, Brittany, because I completely agree. And that's why I had reached out to Commerce last night and why, we finalized budgets an hour before the meeting started today, was because the outcome based on the 20% reductions that Commerce had communicated up to this point were not great. And some of our providers here were on calls with me yesterday to receive that information that it's possible for their programs to not be able to continue based on the information that we had up until yesterday afternoon to give them time to do some transitions between programs for participants to prepare before the next 2 months. So we completely understand the need to let our providers know as soon as possible. And that was with my hope of getting as much absolutely confirmed as we could before our meeting today. And to this point, this is the amount that's final that we can absolutely confirm prior to any additional that closes out in July. And that is just due to the fact that additional dollars are existing in contracts right now through June 30th. So we won't know what agencies don't spend out or what leftover dollars we have until we do the final contract closeouts that finalize into June 30th.
Thank you.
This is Diana. I have a question.
I do have one more
Is there
slide.
another slide?
Oh,
Diana, could we
Yeah.
use the other slide and then come back to your question?
okay.
Okay, and then this is where you will see the bulk of the increase. I believe originally there was about 1.4 allocated for fiscal year. This category of funding is not something the county sets. This is based specifically on our number of sales here, and then it gets reported to the state, and the state is required to allocate Clark County back its dollars for percentage or for prevention. So this number of available funds cannot be moved regardless of what the rest of the system looks like. So we are able to allocate out 3.3 million now a year. And we are, what that means is we're able to fund or recommend funding for additional agencies to be able to maintain services here. So that is the Native American Youth and Family Center would get their full ask, Share would get their full ask, Impact Northwest would get their full ask, Janus Youth Programs would get their full ask, and YWCA would get a partial fulfillment for EPRAP. That being said as well, YWCA, because this category is a set category, the YWCA is the only agency that might not be able to get made whole in July if we do get extra funds, unless we're able to find additional EPRAP dollars or Commerce does award additional dollars specifically to that bucket of funds. And now we can take questions for the system.
Diana?
Yes, thank you. I think you answered one of my questions, which was if additional funding comes, it would be from the Commerce. And how would you parcel it out amongst the different, like temporary housing, homeless outreach, ERAP? Do you have a prioritization for that?
So-
But I understand that there would be a particular bucket assigned if the funds come.
So there is, overall, there are pretty much two main sources of funds for homeless activities here for the county anyhow. And those are our local dollars, so our House bill dollars, our DRFs. So our collections here is a substantial amount. And then our state funds, which is the Commerce Grant. The Commerce Grant is typically set in stone. So once we get it, it's final unless toward the end of the biennium, some other counties are underspending. Then Commerce may reach out for assistance on spending and increasing our package. But right now that would probably be unlikely due to the constraints all the communities are going to be seeing, especially when it comes to federal funds. So we don't anticipate getting additional Commerce funding. What we anticipate is a rollover of local dollars. Because local dollars we're able to maintain in the system. We don't have to give back once a grant ends. So local dollars right now are 100% allocated, but some of our agencies are not on track to spend out local dollars because we got a surplus of state dollars from last year or the year before that. So it's kind of just allows us to have some wiggle room for reallocating, and how that will look is number one, we'll go in and we'll meet the state's priorities. So if we have shelters that are underfunded in our system, we will fund our shelters to their full need first. And then we'll move down our list of priorities, which would be our PSH, our outreach, and rapid rehousing. And from there, it would just be allocated based on the priority of need that the state and the county have identified for homeless services.
Okay, thank you. And that doesn't come back to CAAB, does it?
I'm sorry?
That process doesn't come back to CAAB for any type of
Correct, yeah.
decision making or input?
Correct, yeah. So everything here is, you'll see the agencies that we'll identify here are locked in agencies pretty much.
Okay.
And so within the agencies that we're able to award, we would, if we got through all the priorities, then we could go into our bottom scores of our awardees. So can you go up back a slide, Abby? So for Janus Youth, for example, for outreach, if we were able to fund all our sole source, all our shelter, all our priorities 100%, and we still had excess funds, we would see if we had $100,000 to match Janus Youth programs asked. And then we would go through the rest of the last awardees, make them whole. And from there, if we have excess, that's where that other conversation about the 20% reduction and the concerns with agencies not requesting their full amount would come in. Because then we would have this pool of money. And then the program coordinators assigned could reach out to those agencies and say, hey, we do have an additional, 250,000. We do have 500,000, $1 million, whatever it ends up being, to identify a need and have agencies propose that if they do need an increase built in to be able to sustain over the full 2-year period, we can work with them at that time to increase their contract capacities and meet that need based on additional funds. We just can't go in and award non-identified applicants within the RFA past the point of the RFA closing and us presenting to county council.
Correct. And then my last question is the ask for the full amount that usually can take up almost over 90% of the funds that are available, leaving pittance for the rest of the groups that have been applying. Is that pretty standard to dominate, to allow a domination of funds? I know it's a stupid question, but I'm just looking at the ability to use some common sense and good judgment to allow
So how it is set up, or how it has been historically set up, is it has been done both ways. We can certainly add caps if that's something that we want to do. We can't do it for this RFA, but with what we learn and going forward, we can certainly set caps for categories if that's the direction we want to go for funding. What we have done to this point is the agencies are really telling us their need, based on the amount of alternative funds they might have or their existing staff capacity, client capacity. And some agencies are quite large. And so their need is a lot. And that will mean that they need to come in and request, a full amount to fully sustain or even partially sustain these programs. So something I think for us to consider, and if we are going to do so, something that definitely needs to be communicated to the agencies, their max, because say we set a cap for like 500,000 for this category to ensure we could award two grantees, a larger amount, then that would mean the agencies need to prepare for the fact that they're only going to be able to max out at 500,000. And what does that mean for staffing? What does that mean for program capacity and structure very early on in the phase stage? So it's not something we can adjust right now, but something we can definitely consider in the future.
Yeah, it just doesn't, there's something that needs to be addressed here with it's the ability to be fair for all the other organizations that are not asking for almost everything that's available. And these are organizations that are pretty critical in our community as well. And I understand trying to provide the opportunities for all our organizations that are meeting the community needs. So it just seems like there could be an improvement in the process here. And gosh, I wish we would have talked about this before we went in, so we're not in a situation of having to wait till next time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think at this point, the only way to adjust that, like if we're talking about outreach specifically, is for the agencies. If an agency had reached out and, decided to reassess the amount of their ask, then we can look at redistribution. But if an agency has identified their need and was awarded the amount based on that identified need, at this point, we do need to move forward for approval.
Also, just one thing to add is this is something that we talked about in January during the RFA training about how funding would be awarded based on all of your scores, going from highest applicant receiving their full request and then down the list. So that is something that was discussed with the CAAB before you did your scoring. And then Amy has a question, and then we do need to move on to the next agenda.
Can we go to the next slide real quick?
The ECAP one?
I'm just wondering, that we're at the bottom, on these ones here, how many of those were, I know one of them.
An existing.
I know one of them was one first time.
So all of the programs that are being awarded are existing prevention programs in the community. The one that is not is Cascade AIDS Project, who is existing in the community, but was not awarded based on the amount of funding.
So the ones underneath it, this was their first time reach.
Yeah.
I mean, and do you think all that has happened to give them the low score because they weren't already, that makes that, and I know you said something about that, I did hear that, I just meant I didn't.
Yes, so we built into the RFA scores, because the state's priority is to maintain existing service level capacity. What that means is that for prevention specifically, it means that we have a handful of households within each of those programs that are receiving services. And so if those agencies were to sunset, we have a handful of households now that fall into homelessness or, you know, have to go back through the coordinated entry system. And so that's why we follow the state's guidance to prioritize existing programs here.
Yeah, because I just see all that, one of the bottom ones was going to serve the most people and gotten that.
But also important too is that while an agency might set goals, especially a new agency, might set really high goals, what the actual requirements of the program need to look like might not actually reflect the number of goals that they have set. So with prevention specifically, a lot of agencies may come in with more of like a light touch approach, and that's not at all what the intent of this funding is to do. It is to be ongoing assistance based on household need, graduating them, you know, eventually once they're able to maintain stability. But a lot of that information isn't actually understood and developed within agencies until they get to the contracting and training part with the county. Because we do have a lot of more extensive requirements than, say, a typical program an agency might operate.
Okay. Action on this is going to require a motion. Is there a motion to approve these allocations as presented?
This is Megan. I make the motion.
Okay, I hear a motion from Megan.
This is Faye, I'll second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the HCRS funding recommendations as presented. Are there, well, all those in favor? If you're online, please click on the raise hand sign. We'll get a count, and if you're here, just raise your hand in favor.
I have a question before I can vote. Do I need to abstain because YWCA is part of this group?
Michael, do you have an answer to that one?
I don't know that you have to, but it wouldn't necessarily be a bad idea. Just the fact that that is a question. You didn't provide the scores for your organization's proposal, which is what's basing the funding recommendation. But it's absolutely appropriate for you to abstain if you'd like to.
Okay,
Thank you, Mike.
I just want to make note too that what goes in the record is the count and not the people who voted yes or no.
Before we do this, so that's probably what for Michael. So if, let's go back, I use services with state.
An agent?
Yeah, the one before, that's why I didn't say anything on it because Save First or whatever that was. So I shouldn't, for future, I should abstain.
So again, you weren't part of the scoring for that one. It's
Right.
just a general approval of what we're presented. Yeah, so.
Okay.
It should
And
be.
as a member of the cabinet, a vote like this, your vote is yours.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, so I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hands online. We have 3 in the room. That's again 8 approvals.
Okay, can you lower all the hands? Okay, please lower your hands. And are there any opposed to this motion? Which again is to approve the HRS funding recommendations as presented. Indicate by raising your hand online or.
See no opposition.
Okay, then the vote is 8-0 with some abstentions, at least one. And the motion carries. So what I'm also carrying as an opportunity for reflection is maybe we could talk about what's going on in the second session you mean.
Yeah, so
Not executive session.
Really quick, I just want to talk about some next steps. We did have some time built into the agenda for a reflection today, but we don't have time for that anymore. So what I'm going to do is send out a doodle poll to all the CAAB members for an optional additional meeting to reflect on the RFA process. But for next steps, for all of your awareness, the CAAB recommendations will need to be approved by the county council. So staff, myself and Kayla will draft a staff report and send that to the council. We'll inform the board when the council meeting is. Then once those are approved by the council, we will draft contracts to begin July 1st. We will create quarterly reports to monitor program activity, which we're going to talk to you all about the new quarterly reports and program outcomes in July, and then also provide quarterly updates on those as we have been. And we'll also create monitoring plans to verify programs are meeting contract requirements. Any questions on next steps?
Good. Yeah, I didn't mean executive session on that leadership. It's kind of the four of us. Debrief.
Yeah, I think we'll want to have the full CAAB involved in the
That
reflection
too.
discussion. So these were the questions that I have today to discuss today. Biggest challenges, what do you think went well, and what would you recommend doing differently? So just start thinking about these, and we'll figure out a time to meet to have a optional reflection.
Okay, thank you, Abby. The next item is the July through December 2024 all funding finance report. We have to present.
That will be Rhonda.
Rhonda.
Hi, folks. Yep. See me? Do you hear me?
Yes,
Yep.
we can hear you. Thanks, Rhonda.
Okay. All right. So, there we go. I'm like, I don't have anything to see right now. And this is very small. Can everyone see it? I might have to pull that up via email.
Rhonda, do you want to talk about the expense report or the revenue report first?
I think I'd like to talk about the revenue report and maybe with the pie charts because it's so tiny and it might make more sense to talk about the revenue first.
Yeah, for sure. And I have the pie charts on the slides, but if you just tell me which one you want to talk about, I can pull those up.
Okay. All right. Here, let me pull up your slides because I was expecting something a little bit different. So sorry about this, you guys. Here we go. Okay. Revenue report. So, because we have grants and we have local funds, we have to, in order to get our charts to work properly, we have to categorize these. So the 2023 revenue House bill only is comparative to the fiscal year 24 revenue for the House bill only, and that's because with the House bills, we collect the money in advance and then 1 year in advance and then put it into the contracts. For the grant revenue, it's current grant revenue that we're receiving and spending in the current period. So that explains the 3 columns for everyone. And then there is a revenue chart. Just a minute here. I'm sorry. Like I said, I thought it would be in the PowerPoint. Here we go. Yes. Pardon me. I've also been fighting the last of a bug. So in this pie chart, it shows that the bulk of our funding is coming directly from the state to almost 21,000. Our federal funding is about 1.5 million and 6% of the budget. And then the rest is the local funds, about 11% of the budget and about $2.8 million. Next revenue chart, please, Abby. Here is the categories. We have community action is 771,000. That's mainly the CSBG money and the Human Service Fund money. Then we have the HCRS system, the 24 million, and other, the $450,000 is the refugee funds. We have that 2-year grant that will be ending in June 30. Next slide, next chart.
So that's all I have on the revenue part. I can go back to expenditures if you want.
Sure.
Do you
Does
want
anyone have
to
any
talk-
questions on the revenue? I thought there was one more with the COVIDs, but I guess that was a spending one. Okay, so here is a graph that shows our various funding sources and the amount of funds that were expended between the last period, which was the July through December 2024 6-month period. CAAB obviously is the largest. Marriage license fees at the bottom. You know, our actual CSBG money is down here at the bottom. CSBG federal, CSBG state. House bills in the middle. Obviously, we were spending the grant funds first prior to our local funds to meet our spending requirements. And of course, as you guys were discussing, there was a big influx of state funds that came through that needed to be spent. Are there any questions on this? Okay, hearing none, let's look at the next one, Abby. Okay, here is a pie chart showing how the distribution of funding was provided to services. The community action programs, again, about 3%. And we had core support services, data collection and planning, outreach services, rent assistance being the biggest for prevention, about 25%. And then we had, actually, it's not the biggest. I apologize. It's the second largest. And then various other forms of rent assistance, permanent supportive housing, rapid rehousing, and then shelter services was the largest portion at 37%, which is the brown pie piece. Any questions? Let's look at the next one, Abby. Okay, this one is the distribution of the funding types, comparing the regular funds versus the COVID funds that were expended in the July through December 24 period. We are winding down our COVID funds. As you can see, the bulk of the monies were for regular funds.
And just to add to that, Rhonda, this is Alyssa Page at Community Services. ARPA funds are 100% spent out as of today for the Department of Community Services.
So there will be a little bit more in the January through June report, Alyssa?
I believe there might be a tiny bit more, but only from one provider, Catholic Community Services, for spending.
Okay. Okay. Yep. So we're going to wrap that up, which is great news. You know, we did a great job of spending out our COVID funds. And any questions on this chart? Okay. So we have a detailed expenditure report that Abby, is that included in the packet?
Yeah, so this was sent over email.
Okay.
And I just pulled it up on the screen. So yeah, this breaks down every single program, what funds that they receive, and then how much they spend in each category.
Has everyone had a chance to look at this prior to the meeting? You know, let us know if you have any questions. This will give you all the details you should need to be fully informed, pretty detailed.
And if you have any, it's Alyssa again, if you have any specific questions, it's a lot of information to digest. You can reach out and email Abby, Rhonda, or myself at any point you have any questions, and we'll be able to explain more to you. But this kind of gives you a more in-depth review of the contracts, the type of contracts like support services, shelters, rental assistance, the amount spent in that 6-month period, and the balances remaining. And we do prioritize the state funds over the local funds, but 100% of all of our local funds are allocated into contracts. And there's a legend at the very end of this spreadsheet, so it tells you what each of the acronyms stand for that are listed above.
Is that all? Okay, are there any other questions or comments about the all funding finance report? Hearing none. I'll ask if well, Brittany and you and Brittany are already here. We'll go ahead and move on to the next information item, which are the task force updates.
All right, thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rhonda. Thank you, Alyssa.
You bet.
All right. Brittany, are you able to give an update for the Legislative Advocacy Task Force?
The sorry, I was going to, and then I had to come to a different part of my building, and so now I'm not in front of my computer. I can say that the rent stabilization bill did go through. It had definitely some amendments, and that was a big one that we were supporting. But I do not have the list in front of me of the other ones because I'm in another part of my building right now.
No worries. Thanks, Brittany. If you have time later and want to send that link to the CAAB, feel free to do so.
Okay, yeah.
For the community needs assessment, the task force has been started. We have our second meeting next Tuesday. This task force is meeting the second Tuesday of every month at 11 a.m. Here in this room, and then also virtually. We have a lot of really great task force members. Our first meeting was really great. We talked about a lot of outreach strategies that can be used this time around to try to get this assessment to reach more populations and get more diverse responses there. For the next meeting, we're going to be looking at the survey from last time and seeing if there's any edits that need to be made to improve it or make it more appropriate for this next CNA. We are planning to launch the survey January of 2026, and it'll be open for 3 months from January through March. So we're going to be doing a lot of prep, a lot of outreach leading up to that. And then once the survey is launched, I will definitely need all of your help getting the word out so we get as many responses as possible. Any questions on that?
Could you remind us who the members of the task force are?
So of board members, we have, I think, I'll need to pull up the list actually. But there are a lot of community members who volunteered for it as well, so you will recognize all of the names. But the board members who are currently on the task force are Melanie, Brittany, and Emily. So if anyone else is interested in joining, let me know. And I'm happy to add you to the list for that.
Thank you.
I see Diana's hand is raised.
Yes, can you add me to that, Abby?
Absolutely. Amy, you too? Sure.
And what time is that on the second Tuesday?
11 a.m.
Thank you for stepping up for that.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you guys for volunteering. Yeah, really looking forward to this process, and I think we have a really great team. All right, that is all of the task force updates. Were there any other questions on those?
Hearing none, we are 10 minutes ahead of schedule now. We take a break, or if Samantha wants to go ahead. Who's here? Okay. Samantha Whitley, are you here?
Good morning.
Next item,
I'm here.
Next item is the City of Vancouver Affordable Housing and Homelessness Update.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome.
I'm happy to provide some updates on what our housing team has been up to. So we've been working on rental habitability. We have some Affordable Housing Fund awards that will be going to council next week, as well as our federal CDBG and home recommendations. So, both of these are going to council May 12th. So you guys are getting a sneak peek. Next slide. So our rental registration program, it's also been under development, and we have some code drafted that will be going forward to council approval. We've been doing some community outreach and have a Be Heard page. So we're looking to register all long-term rentals starting in 2026. And this will help us get better data on what the available housing is in the city. And then in the future, after the registration program launches, we would have ongoing proactive inspections of units sometime in 2027. So just wanted to give updates on where that's at and make sure, try to get the word out that this is something that is coming down the road. Our Affordable Housing Fund, we have a housing advisory committee that's looked at the applications that came in. We are accepting applications now on a rolling basis for affordable housing funds for housing production or preservation. So we had received a batch of applications through March, and our housing committee reviewed those in April and put together their recommendations. I think I have them listed on the next slide to look further at the details on what is going forward to council. So they recommended a total of 11 million, a little over $11 million for 5 projects to include Community Roots, which is will be a new development. There's then 3 Heights projects, Artifact and the 2 VHA, senior housing and a family housing project that needed, those will be forward commitments. So those projects can go after state and federal funding to fully fund them, but we're excited about those. And then Smith Tower, we provided them with an award last year. They had several HUD pending awards, and those are a little bit up in the air right now. So they did come in and ask us for some additional support. And the committee recommended another $2 million towards Smith Tower to preserve those existing units in downtown Vancouver. So I'll move on to the federal funding. Our CDBG and HUD, our Housing Advisory Committee is also recommends our CDBG and home awards. So we're looking at renewing rental assistance program for Janus Youth and Share. We have an ongoing capacity building program for 5 community-based organizations that the Community Foundation supports. And then our public no, not our public services. This is our home ARP supportive services as recommended for 3 agencies. And this is the funding that HUD allocated as part of the American Rescue Plan, specifically for homelessness assistance. And our public services are at the bottom of this slide. 3 agencies were recommended to help with housing and mentorship. And we have a separate business assistance committee that reviewed the applications for business assistance and made 3 recommendations for those 3 nonprofits to help businesses. I think that might be my last slide. And all of this, like I said, is pending council approval, but I'm happy to field any questions, or otherwise, just thanks for letting me continue to provide updates.
Any questions for Samantha? Hearing none, thank you for coming in, Samantha, and presenting these updates. Okay, May is Community Action Month, Abby.
All right, thanks, Rob, and thank you, Sam. All right, so just for everyone's information, May is Community Action Month. This is a month where everyone in community action agencies is encouraged to do a lot of promotional awareness about what these agencies do and the importance of them in the community. So every year, the National Community Action Partnership releases a community action toolkit to support outreach and promotion efforts for the month of May. The toolkit was sent out and is linked here. I tried to send it out to you all before the meeting, but it was too big to send over email, so I'll include it as a link in the follow-up email. And this year, they also released a webinar about Community Action Month and how to navigate and use the toolkit, which is also linked here and will be included in the follow-up email if you all would like to watch it. These are, I will say, more for agencies to promote their work and accomplishments of community action, but may be interesting and useful to you as well in your advocacy efforts. There are a lot of talking points about the importance and impact of this funding, which is under, serious threat by the federal government. So these talking points could be useful if you are planning on doing any advocacy around preserving this funding. Any questions on that? All right, well, since we have extra time, Chair, do you want to go back to the reflection and use our rest of our time doing that?
Yes, let's go back to that agenda item. On the slide there. Okay. And Abby and Kaylee, I'm going to let you lead off with this. Go ahead, please.
All right, so since we have some extra time, let's just spend some time talking about the RFA. I know this was a very challenging and frustrating process for you all, and there are a lot of ways that it needs to be improved next time. We have already been compiling a list of ways that internally we know that the RFA needs to be adjusted and improved for next time. But would love to hear from the CAAB how the scoring experience was and what challenges you experienced, if anything you think went well, and what you would recommend doing differently. So I'll just open it up for discussion.
If you have something to say or want to add, please raise your hand in the meeting or just indicate to me, and we'll call in you.
I see Nikia's hand raised.
Nikia?
Oh, thank you, Chair. I would just say for myself, I experienced quite a bit of difficulty in navigating the system. Not that I'm like technically deficient or anything. It's just that I think for the overactive brain that kind of overly thinks things too much, I was in a haste to score my things, and so I accidentally scored things that weren't mine. And so just maybe color coding. Like, is there a way to color code I like color codes and just things to help myself in my dyslexia to keep a track of what is tasked to me. So maybe next time we could put colors by the groups in I don't know if it's even possible, but just like by the inside of the application process where it first takes you to all of the many different screens. It's easier to navigate going through those many screens if you have like, at least, you're paying attention to your color so you don't get kind of confused, if that makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense, Nikia. And I will say that we are limited with the bonfire system for what we can control. So adding Like coordinating colors isn't possible within that system. But if we do continue with Bonfire, their support team has let me know that they're adding something in to be able to download full PDFs of individual submissions, which would allow you to see the full application in one screen view as opposed to having a million tabs open at once or needing to download separate files. Also, though, the county is considering moving away from Bonfire, so it's possible that we have a new system to navigate within the next few years. So just something to be aware of as well.
Yeah, we're hoping that this other system that we're considering is much more user-friendly, especially for scorers, since I know that Bonfire was really, really difficult for a lot of you. I see Broadvillen's hand is raised.
Yes, I just wanted to say one of the things I thought that was very helpful. There was a couple fellow CAB members that were having ongoing meetings. I didn't get a chance to participate in them personally, but I thought that just having that opportunity to meet up with other CAB members to review applications and like having that designated time as a group was really beneficial. Just knowing that I had access to that space, and I would say just as a new CAB member, it was really nice because there are more seasoned team members that have had experience with this cycle and knowing that they were available for me to tap into. So I definitely encourage to keep that going and see if we could maybe even expand it and make it a bigger initiative in the next cycle of creating those groups and just kind of helping just a little bit more facilitate those, because I do think it can be very beneficial.
Yeah, thanks, Broadvillen. Amy, did you have your hand raised?
I didn't even know about those groups. I thought that would have been helpful, but, yeah. I just kind of went blank because I was thinking about that. No, I think that if it was for me, having an option to get it printed would have been a lot easier, just because I'm old and I just like it printed. It's like here instead of having that on the board. I mean, this is like my third or fourth time doing this, so I just think that
Yeah, so I did during the RFA training and over email offer to print and mail binders to people, and I did that from Sandra and Faye. I didn't hear from you that you needed that.
I must be missing something here because I don't know where those meetings came from. I didn't even know about, you guys already had a meeting for the.
Did the members of the individual groups just meet together?
That's it. Yeah, it was just the members that kind of, yeah.
Was that coordinated?
So
by,
I coordinated that. So I just reached
okay,
out to a couple people that I knew, and because I didn't want to do the I didn't want to do the scoring on my own, and so that was really more. It was more just led by me, and so we just coordinated. So I mean, I agree. I think it would be great to have it more led, maybe. If we could maybe use, because I think where we struggled was trying to find a space that we could all like be in. And I enjoyed it. I think it was really only like one or twice that we got to spend time together. We scheduled like about 8 of them, but a lot of that we had to reschedule or cancel. But maybe for next time could be maybe something. I don't know if we're able to reserve a space in the space of in the offices, and maybe have more of like snacks and just like a quiet time to be able to work on the applications. Because anyways, I just wanted to say that I led that. It was nothing. Yeah.
I wonder if there's a way we could formalize that idea.
I don't know if that actually would be such, I mean, that's great that happened, but I mean, like, it's kind of like a voting thing. I mean, that we're doing for each, maybe I'm wrong. But like, I can influence you too, because if I tell you what I think about this, then I don't know.
We didn't talk about any of the applications. It was more like we had questions about like clarifying questions. Like I don't at least remember ever talking about each of our applications. It was more like even the first meeting we had was trying to figure out Bonfire. Like we really it was more just technical stuff, and because we all knew that we're not there to talk about that. We're there to grade our own And so I think that was just common knowledge that we just knew that we weren't supposed to. So.
Yeah, thank you. And that is something to be cautious about. But I do like the idea of open working spaces for technical assistance with bonfire.
Yeah, and you did open up a couple of office hours close to people. Maybe if that opportunity were distributed during the full review period, some of us would get better reminders.
Yeah.
Even with all the reminders that you sent, I want to recognize that we got a lot of reminders when the deadline was looming. I ended up slipping the deadline. Appreciate the support that you gave me in extending that so that I could finish those things. I did run into just a cognitive problem in Bonfire, in that I could see, like under each of these topics, there was content for one or two applicants and blank spaces for the others. And
Yeah, I never been like that before.
I can explain that. So with, for the homeless crisis response system, for as large of a application pool for as many different service activities as there were, historically, what would happen was that if agencies needed to come in for different programs, they needed to submit an entire different agency for each program. And then you would have it to where there would be no blanks in a questionnaire. What we did for the agencies, so that they only had to submit like general agency required documentation one time, is we created alternatives. So that allowed them to come in as one agency and apply to multiple service categories without having to duplicate their work 1, 2, 3, 4 times for all the other required documentation. So it was something that on the agency side was helpful and removed a lot of extra effort from them. But on your guys' side, when you're looking at the applications, it might create blanks. The other thing to consider too is that when an agency comes in for that RFA, you're going to see that agency on every single questionnaire, regardless if they came in for that funding. So if they had blanks, that was a reflection that they did not apply and did not complete that questionnaire for that bucket of funding.
right, and I came to that point, but it took me a second.
Yeah.
Just looking in at the
Yeah, yeah.
that there was a blank space, and it's like discovering in the documents that they hadn't submitted for that particular category. And I felt better, but it took a little bit of time to reach that conclusion.
Yeah, so
I also didn't use your office hours to be confused.
I was gonna say, I think what would be helpful too is maybe after submissions, during, you know, whether or not it's a work group or whether or not it's a scheduled CAAB meeting time, walking through a mock review as a group to look at what those look like. Because if we were to make it so, say you could only see the agencies that came in for that questionnaire, we would have to make an individual RFA for each individual service type. And that would be, you know, 5 RFAs for you guys to go through instead of just 2, or actually 7 or 8 for you guys to go through instead of just 2, which would create a different complexity as well.
This was the first year that was like 1 and 2, 3, you know, I'm saying you guys actually said, instead of being, okay, you got 5 points. You determined, but I think it was a little bit more helpful in ways. On some form, so.
Yeah, and it is even still confusing in the bonfire system, the way it's set up as well, because when you look at, like, if you just go to whatever RFA and click the points, you're gonna see the agencies, it doesn't even make sense. You wouldn't even be able to tell the awards because their agency as a whole is just given points based on like all of the points available across all of the questionnaires, not just the ones they applied for. So it really does take the system and then us, you know, pulling from the system to confirm the points, calculate them, and then, you know, work with you guys here to finalize them.
Yeah, so that was just kind of a user interface confusion for me. Because when I'm showing my laptop off to Kayla here, the whole screen looked like 5 applicants. And I had to remember to move it to the right in order to see the Seymour application under SOAR, which was the only app. So
There's one other thing.
yeah.
Hi,
Go
this,
ahead.
This is Faye. When we get instructions on a program like Bonfire, we need to hear how to do things step by step. Don't assume that somebody's going to know that it's obvious for everybody, because it's not. Bonfire was hard. If you didn't know how to get there and what to do when you got there, and then what to do when you got there, you were lost, or at least I was.
All right. I think talking about all the questions, but Sandra, do you still have your hand raised?
Sorry, no.
I do have a comment too, because I know that somebody had made a comment about, the confusion of the system as a whole. And I do want to let our cabinet members know that Abby and I are planning time for training during the July meeting, specifically for the homeless crisis response system, to give you guys an updated refresh on the system level priorities and focuses we really want you guys to understand. And kind of make clear, what areas that you can entrust Abby and I have full understanding and monitoring of, and what areas should really be deriving your discussions and decision-making with that. So in the meantime, if you have any specific questions about the homeless system, because that is by far the most complex system that we have, reach out to me and I can make sure to include whatever I can in the realm of what the focus needs to be for system overview in that training.
Are you guys gonna be switching platforms or before the next one?
Oh, we have no idea. That's
Okay.
yeah.
And that'll be in 3 years.
Oh, 3 years?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, we do RFA cycles every 2 years.
I
Unless
thought
we
you said
get
that was like
more funding, like Commerce might randomly come in and say, hey, we have this amount of funding for this effort. You won't see another RFA unless that's the case for 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, any other comments on challenges, what went well, or what you recommend doing differently next time about the scoring process?
I really appreciated that when you drilled down into the different topics. Like on a question, there was a response, I could double tap there and the rubric was right. That was really,
And we tried to match that exactly to your guidance document too. That way, if you're a paper person or, you're good on the computer, then you have that multiple areas.
yeah.
That's great.
Was the guidance document helpful? Did people utilize that for their scoring?
There we go.
The ones before you mean the documents that were on there,
Yeah, so we had two. We had the CAAB homeless crisis response system, which maybe like 15 pages, and the homeless crisis response system one, which was probably around 15 to 20 as well.
I like to be able to, even though I know some of that stuff, but to be able to go back and reach out to you guys and ask you, I could actually use that.
These are the Department of Commerce guidance.
No, the guidance documents that we put together for the RFA.
Which one's that?
And that would be helpful too, because some people may know it, but I've been here for a minute and still trying to figure out some of the stuff that once I I didn't know that it was two whole different processes till you guys had sent me a thing saying that I got missed two, and I'm like, what? So like, I guess maybe a little bit.
I'm hoping that our training, and if we want to have them more often too, that's an option we can explore. But I'm hoping that the training in July will set us up better for just an understanding of the board for the programs that we have, and really the separation between Abby and I. Because while that was presented, and it has always been in existence, Rebecca previously had overseen both sides, the system and the CAAB programs. But a very clear distinction for you guys on the separation of those and what that means and what programs are serviced under each is what we're hoping to establish in July. And then from there, kind of establish the roles and what we're seeking from you guys.
We had a few weeks there to do it, and I just think maybe it would have been I don't know, legislative session, we, instead of having meetings, people think of hour meetings. Well, maybe just like half an hour once a week to be able to ask questions or something like that might be, you know, it's not a whole meeting, but people could jump on if they wanted to, that half an hour, and then the staff could be there to answer questions, you know, kind of like. And to keep it more, they're each individual, that's the only thing I'm thinking about.
We could also, if that's helpful, break it up too. So maybe during one meeting, Abby can present on CAAB specific RFA stuff, and then next, you know, we can do a homeless system one. So it's very distinct, separated, that those are two different processes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have 2.5 years to begin understanding the process. We can make good use of that time.
Anything else before we move to open forum? All right, well, thank you all again so much for your hard work on this scoring process. I know it was time consuming and complicated and also really impactful. So thank you all so much for your hard work on this.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. The next item on our agenda is the open public forum. This is a time in our meeting when anyone attending the meeting can speak for up to 3 minutes. And so I'll open the open public forum portion of the meeting by asking if anybody would like to speak. You don't have to be a member of the CAAB. What's your name?
Sarah.
Sarah.
Garcia.
Sarah Gongora Garcia.
Yes.
You're recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you. And I'm a program manager with CMAR CSW, and our agency was one of the applicants for the RFA. And I just wanted to throw out a comment about something that was discussed earlier, just for full transparency, and our experience with the application. A comment was made earlier about agencies or applicants were not informed, or excuse me, were not, we're not told to put their proposals at a 20% reduction, that we were told that, directed to apply for the full amount that was needed for our program. And I just wanted to state that that was not accurate, that we did receive directive in early December, in an email that was clearly laid out in anticipated 20% reductions, and that we were directed to give a proposal with our applicant at a 20% reduction. So while it's great to see, you know, our agency up there, we are part of the SOAR applicants receiving the full funding. That is really exciting. But I just want to share that hearing the process that you go through if there are extra funds and how they're allocated, that if we had asked what our program needs, not at a 20% reduction, that is what we would have asked for. And then looking at that as an example, hopefully that is what we would have been awarded. So I just want to share that that statement is not accurate. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Are there any other people wishing to speak? Are there any other people who'd like to speak? Are there any others who would like to speak? Hearing
I
none.
see Ren's hand raised.
Ren's hand, thank you for catching that. Ren Autry, you're recognized for 2 minutes.
Ren, would you like to speak? You're muted.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I just really wanted to say I do hope for a review of the RFA process. So it doesn't, the scoring and the awards doesn't shut out newer programs and smaller programs that might be learning this process and learning how to improve their scores. So that way organizations that have more experience and more size ask for all of the, you know, all of the available funds, and then it makes it unavailable for smaller organizations and newer organizations that are learning the process to be able to be funded when the funding gets taken by the top scorer, and then it doesn't allow for other programs to exist. It pushes them out via the score based on experience and an understanding of what's available and asking for it all. I look forward to reviewing that RFA in the future, and so that way it might make more opportunity for a more diverse program opportunities in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ren.
Thank you for your comment. Are there any others who would like to give a comment?
Adam Kravitz with Outside Design.
Adam, go ahead.
As a past CAAB board member, I'm confused to hear the process has changed and is still, I was not inspired today by hearing the members speaking about the processes. I've sat on this board for a number of years and understand, and it sounds like the processes are changing, that there's more review and that there's prospects that are looking at. But I was not necessarily inspired. I guess what I want to reiterate is, one, that our numbers were told to be reduced. And I also want to just point out, like, if we are mandating existing services, Outsiders In was really put in an impossible position where we were made to reapply based off of being told that we hadn't applied before. So we had been an existing RFP process, we've been through it, we received it. Then we were told that we hadn't applied before, had to reapply, putting the shelter in a very precarious position. You know, I was like yesterday or today, we were, considering having to close the shelter. And that's, and so trying to understand the process, how we were put in a position to reapply, and then we were rescored, and then the scoring process, which, fair enough, if we're scoring a new or existing shelter, but outside of the St. Paul shelter is not a new shelter. And it's been a long-standing existing shelter. It's the second oldest shelter in the community, technically, one of them. So I want to feel like maybe having all the right information for the members of the team to understand what they are scoring as well could probably be reviewed. So.
Thank you for your comment. We're out of time for other comments at this point, so I'll go ahead and close the open public forum section of the meeting and move on to the next agenda item, which is other business. Are there any comments from the CAAB or requests for other agenda items for the good of the order? Hearing none, I want to thank all those who did speak up during the public forum. I appreciate what you had to say, and raising those difficulties is something that I really appreciate. Just in general, just knowing the problems helps us to solve the problems. Having said that, if there is no other business, I'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting. It's 11:01. Thank you for coming.